Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Steve Parrish. I'm the co-director of the New York Life Center for Retirement Income here at the American College of Financial Services. And I really want to thank you for signing in. I hope everybody is doing well. And I will fill you in on the CE process shortly, but first let me set up what we're covering today. Today, we're introducing a new faculty member who realistically doesn't really need introducing. Ed Slott is an author and public speaker providing training in IRAs and retirement distribution planning. And he's been a collaborative creator of 3 nationally aired public television specials. He's a practicing CPA. And now he has joined the American College as a professor of practice. Okay, so now let me properly greet you, Ed. Welcome to the American College. It's great to have you here. And based on your prolific writing and speaking schedule, I assume you were bored and looking for something else to do up there in New York?
Never bored, always exciting. It's been this way probably for 40 years, but especially probably the last 30 years since IRAs started growing and 401ks. And there's been such demand, more so now than even in the past, for 2 reasons. People are worried there's transition, and also account balances have grown substantially. And consumers, clients are starting to realize, what do I do now? What about the taxes? I picked up on that over 30 years ago, as I said, and I realized there was a big void. I call it the black hole of planning, still is. And that's why we're presenting this fantastic program for the American College to get advisors educated to help their clients keep more of their hard-earned money. And remember, the more money they keep, the better it is for the advisor and everyone. So I love doing this. The changes are coming at us so quick with the new tax law, new things happening as we're speaking, and I see opportunity everywhere. But I've been like that for my whole career.
Yeah, the same enthusiasm. So we're now, and because of this, we're taking a different approach than we usually do with these webinars. Ed has graciously agreed to have his team join us online to field questions as we have our discussion. Of course, you want to hear the scintillating conversation that Ed and I have. But if you have a question that's related to IRA planning and retirement distribution, what you need to do is type it into the Q&A box, not the chat box, but that Q&A box that you have on your screen there. And Ed's team will do their best to handle your questions. Now, let's do a quick reality check. We can only discuss questions that apply generally. We can't be in the position of being the tax advisors for your individual clients. But Ed, I've put up the slide of your team. Any comments or introduction before we get into our discussion?
Well, these are the best in the business. If you've got an IRA related question, tax related, these people have heard it all. That's Sarah Brenner, our Director of Education, of Retirement Education, Andy Ives and Ian Berger. Together, I don't even know the number of years, probably over 50 years of experience in this. And especially as we adapted quickly to the virtual programs, they've been doing this, I would say just about, I think it's just about the anniversary of a year since I got off my last plane. And this is from somebody that's been on planes for 20 years, almost every day. So they were presenting at our live programs, of course, doing the presentation, writing a lot of the course materials and answering questions. But now, since this last year, I don't know how many questions they answer. For example, at our last 2-day program in 2 days, the 3 of them answered over 500 questions online in real time, just like we're doing here. So we thought this would be a great kickoff for the American College to get a taste of the expertise that went in to the IRA Success program. So you can start typing in anything you want for Sarah, Andy, and Ian. They've heard it all. And they're the best in the business.
Yeah, this is great. So Ed's team will actually be looking at your questions. And again, in the Q&A box in Zoom, this is great. Well, I'll tell you what, Ed, before we delve into IRAs specifically, I thought I could set the stage, if you will, take the temperature of where we are with retirement planning right now. So just kind of thinking this through, we've got the Secure Act. It's kind of like a reset button for retirement planning. And Ed's going to comment on IRAs specifically as it affects or it's affected by the Secure Act. And then we have the CARES Act and whatever you want to call the stimulus bill that was at the end of last year. And there are a lot of tax related provisions. But, to me, it's interesting what it doesn't cover. So they did not extend the coronavirus related distribution and loan provision. They didn't extend the RMD waiver, and they never did provide a Roth IRA recharacterization provision. So then we have the stimulus bill that's in the House. We're not covering that today, but I would say the audience, you want to look at this when it's finalized because there may be some hidden opportunities. For example, I was thinking about one thing is college students. Well, college students that are under the age of 25 may, under certain circumstances with this new stimulus bill, assuming it's signed by the president, get 3 stimulus checks totaling about $3,200. And so in the right situation, right there, that might be a reason for them to invest in like a Roth IRA. So we also in the tax area have new RMD tables that I talked about in our last webinar, meaning lower payouts. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And then of course, tax increases. Well, I think we could all agree for the affluent and the wealthy, at least, taxes will certainly not go down and they may go up. And related to inherited IRAs, there's this new threat really of more people being subject to estate and gift taxes. So let's just, before we get into the question of asking you, Ed, about where the state of retirement planning advisories are, we have the other changes. So we know many clients have been hurt by this economic downturn. And we know that the wage and the wealth gaps have gotten worse, not better. And then, you got COVID and life expectancies. I mean, you can't have a 500,000 deaths from a pandemic without it somehow affecting life expectancies and mortality and the way clients are thinking about these issues. And then finally, we have the insecurity of Social Security, something the American College has been talking about for over a year now. That has an effect on the client's baseline security income. So let me ask you, Ed, as our professor of practice, about the state of retirement planning these days for advisors. So American College was a creator of the ChFC and the largest provider of CFP training. And now we have over 8,000 RICPs who are laser targeted on retiring. With all that's going on, where's the retirement practitioner and where's the practice of retirement planning, Ed?
Well, it has to come full circle. You can't just help people make money. Most people, that's good. That's the first half of the game. I always liken retirement planning to a football game. There's a saying in football, the score at halftime is irrelevant. Give me the score at the end of the game, and then I'll tell you who won. Remember, retirement is a long game, and it has 2 halves. The first half is the accumulation phase, just like the football game has 2 halves. The problem is most advisors and most consumers only play in the first half of the game. I hear stories from consumers all the time saying, wow, I can't believe it. We've got all the money we'll ever need for retirement. They pat themselves on the back. They go in at halftime. Meanwhile, and they think they're done. Meanwhile, the IRS is coming out. They're playing the 3rd and 4th quarter and they win. So you've got to play in the second half of the game. Same thing for the advisors. The advisors were always trained to help people make money. But when you're making money, and that's a good thing, but remember, when you're making money in an IRA or a 401k or any tax deferred account, you're also making lots of money for Uncle Sam. And that has to be dealt with in the second half of the game. This is the opportunity I was talking about before. This is the opportunity for advisors who want to step up and get educated to play in the value half. Most of the people that you're dealing with, clients, prospects, even beneficiary centers of influence, the people coming to you, they probably have their money already. Now they want to protect it and keep it and make it last as long as they do and beyond. So they need the tax planning for retirement distributions, the wealth transfer, the estate planning. They're going to have to get immersed in all of this. I mean, they don't have to, but anybody who doesn't is going to lose business to more better informed advisors. And that's why we created this program with the American College, to give that competitive edge for advisors who want to step up. It's all about getting educated and bringing in new business, better business, and doing a better job for clients to help them keep more of their money. You know, there's two parts to this. It's not only getting educated to help them do the planning, but getting educated enough to avoid the horrible mistakes that I've seen made both by consumers and advisors, where entire retirement savings accounts were lost just by not knowing the rules, making the wrong rollover moves, not knowing the rules, say, for trust for some large IRAs. I've seen those things blow up. Remember, the rules in this area are complex, but they're not only complex, most of them are rigid and unforgiving. There is not a lot of second chances. You mentioned one, Steve, with the Roth IRA conversion. You have one shot. There's no do-overs anymore, no more recharacterizations. And personally, I don't think that's ever coming back. Congress was glad to get rid of that. Not that they were that glad, but I think the financial institutions just couldn't stand this in and out stuff. So that's gone. So you have to be able to give advice, good advice, do evaluations, do projections, and get it right the first time. That's the key to high value. And that's where you'll see the growth of the practices for the future advisors, not just managing money. That's good also, but it's become commoditized, just like my colleagues as a CPA doing tax returns, preparing returns. That's commoditized. Nowhere did we see that more starkly than if you watch the football playoffs or the Super Bowl. What did you see? Everybody could do their taxes for free. Every other ad, do it for free. That CPA, he's worth it. Why would you pay that guy? I agree. You've got to find things that add a lot more value than things that are out there that are becoming commoditized. So this kind of training, this kind of program, things we've been teaching for years, and now we're bringing to the American college, this is where the high value is. Now, most advisors still won't have that knowledge, but the ones who do will not only survive, but they will see their practices thrive. So that's where it's going in the future. You're going to have to stand out with high value services that people understand. They are not getting this from most financial advisors. I know that, my team knows that. Why? We train more financial advisors in this area than anyone in the country, and not enough are well trained. This is the difference between success and being out of business. If you're not doing this, you shouldn't be handling this money. And if you're not handling retirement money, you're probably not a financial advisor anymore, because it's where most people have most of their hard-earned retirement savings. So that's where I see the successful practices going. Advisors dipping in here, keeping up with the changes. It's challenging, but there's help. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in fact, let's talk about both halves of the game that you were just referred to. So let's first discuss the first half, the accumulation side of IRAs. With all that's going on with the Secure Act, giving us IRAs over 70, but taking away our stretch IRAs and all that kind of stuff. Do you think the advice has changed for younger savers about investing in IRAs? Is it a new story?
Oh, yeah. The Secure Act upended most estate plans. That's why it's imperative for every advisor on this program. We have a few thousand of them. I'm looking at the numbers. It's incredible. There's a lot. Yeah, looking at the numbers. It's imperative to review every client's retirement plan and probably revise it. Especially, I would focus on two groups: the clients with the largest IRAs. Those plans probably won't work anymore due to the Secure Act's elimination of the so-called stretch IRA, that extended tax deferral after death that many clients had planned for, counted on for 20 or 30 years. But Congress pulled the rug out from under them. Why? As usual, they needed money. And that's a sign for advisors. Whenever Congress needs money, they raid retirement accounts. It's just a well-known fact. Why do they do that? For the same reason Willie Horton robbed the bank, because that's where the money is. The latest numbers that I've seen is about 20 trillion in these retirement accounts. That's trillion with a T. Forget about billions like Bill Gates. That's nothing anymore. Now we're into trillions, all untaxed. So what does a 401k or an IRA look like to Congress? A big, juicy steak. to get at that money as fast as we can to fill all the budget gaps. And that's exactly what they did. So in the Secure Act, they downgraded IRAs as a wealth transfer or estate planning vehicle by eliminating that long tax deferral and replacing it with an acceleration of taxes into 10 years after death for most non-spouse beneficiaries. And what you have on the screen here is now a snapshot of the new categories of beneficiaries. This is just an idea of the kind of learning tools you'll have in the American College program. I mean, we have hours and hours of this information, but lots of nice infographics, charts, and teaching and learning tools so you can explain how this is impacting your client. So the two groups most affected, if you're on this program now, you should be writing down the names of the clients you want to identify, those with the largest IRAs. Why? More of that is likely to pass over to the next generation, and more of those people probably have named trusts, which may not work anymore. And then the other group, which is probably the rest of your clients, people where their largest single asset is their IRA or 401k. That's a lot of people. So some people, it's their largest single asset, larger than the value of the home. So their largest single asset is at risk of future higher taxes consuming their retirement savings just when they'll need them the most in retirement, when the paychecks stop and they're the most vulnerable. These people desperately need advisors, and advisors, it works both ways, desperately need to communicate with these people so everyone wins. Tremendous, that's why I keep saying tremendous opportunity, but you have to, invest in your knowledge. One of my favorite quotes goes back from Benjamin Franklin. And, it's something I always believed in my whole life. If people ask me, what was one of the successful things you did in your life? The best investment, I'm not a stock investor or anything like that, Steve, but the best investment I ever made or continue to make is right here in my own knowledge, in my own business. And that always pays off. This is what Ben Franklin had to say about that. And this is back, in the 1700s, and it hasn't changed. He said, if a man empties his purse into his head, no man can take it away from him. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. And that's exactly the message here. You invest in your business, in your own knowledge, and you will see it skyrocket from all the help you'll be giving to clients and your future clients. There's your succession plan. The beneficiaries, you know why? Because when the beneficiaries inherit, they will know if you knew your stuff by how much they inherit and how much goes to the government. They will know. So you want to have a nice outcome, so they'll talk about you. And that's how you add 25 years of life to your practice. So there's opportunity everywhere. You just have to dig in where the high value is. I always found high value in helping people keep more of their money. It's a tangible measure. People can see that you're saving them tens, hundreds of thousands, or millions they would otherwise pay in taxes. That's a great high value service that people will pay for. Take it from me. I did my whole career getting high fees for this kind of high value advice that people understand.
Yeah, you caught me off guard, Ed, because when you said Benjamin Franklin, I thought you were either going to give us the quote that says the only certain thing in life is death and taxes, or the other one is God gave us beer as an expression of his love for mankind. But no, I like your quote.
Well, the death and taxes, at least one of them you can still complain about, which lots of people do. But that's why they need an advisor, because it always comes down to this. I tell consumers, clients this all the time. You can complain about taxes or do something about it. The bottom line is the more you plan, the more you keep. And you'll need an advisor that has the specialized knowledge. Most of the clients who have good positions in IRAs and 401ks, they're getting up to speed too. They're learning more about it. And a lot of them are moving to better educated advisors. I see it all the time, especially in periods of transition now. When people are in transition, that's when their money's in motion. When the money's in motion, that's when it's up for grabs. And that's when the money changes pockets. to better educated, more informed advisors who can do the job.
Yeah, that's in fact exactly why we set up the Retirement Income Center and RICP. So to know more. So that's kind of the accumulation side. Let's talk about the second half of the game, the decumulation side. In last month's webinar, one of the things we did is I showed a model comparing a 70-and-a-half-year-old's IRA balance had there not been the Secure Act and the change in the RMD table. So I basically said, look, if somebody retired at 70, or I mean, became 70 and a half last year, and we didn't have Secure Act and we didn't have the tables change, and they had $1 million, the deal is because of the RMDs, they basically after 10 years, so when they hit age 80, would have about $642,000 and change. So after 10 years, because of RMDs, about 642,000. But in the later example, the same person did get the Secure Act, so she got to delay 2 years of RMDs, and then these lower tables that came in at the end of the year, which are effective next year. In that case, she would have had 711,700. In other words, she would have had more than 10% larger balance in her IRA, and that's what you were talking about, these huge balances. So the question, Ed, is just because individuals can put off RMDs longer, should they?
No, no. All you're doing is putting it off for another day where it will be worse. Anybody who has seen the deficit and debt levels and the new stimulus bill, at some point, this credit card bill the whole country is living on, my opinion, taxes will have to go up. And this is why advisors need to plan for it now. And now is a critical time. Why? We have the lowest tax rates most people will ever see in their lifetime. I don't think you'll ever see it lower. And the key to all good tax planning is to always pay taxes at the lowest rates. You know, that's kind of like saying buy low, sell high. I didn't make that one up, but that's a good one too. You're buying the tax rate. You know, one of the best quotes came from, you may remember him, Steve, the old time comedian. Remember Henny Youngman? He had the best saying, but the smartest saying about taxes. He said, I'm putting all my money in taxes, the only thing sure to go up. He was correct. And that's where advisors have to focus to take advantage of today's low rates. They might not even be here next year. I think we have this 1 year in good shape to keep it, but who knows what next year is going to bring.
Yeah, it could be a change. And so we've got to figure out how to take it. And I think it's a good point. We pulled out one of the slides from your materials that I think is something else they have to understand is you don't just take it, you got to figure out how to take it.
That's the key. And when to take it.
Yeah.
For example, this is just an example of one of the many tools. We use lots of infographics. We know it helps with learning concepts. So this is an example of the 5-year clocks. People get all bent out of shape and confused about it. The tax rules are confusing. That's why they have us. We make it nice and easy to understand. But the point of the program, it's to understand, but put it into practice too. It's not enough to have the knowledge. If you don't put it into practice with your key relationships, your current clients, your prospects, your beneficiaries and centers of influence, you're not doing anything. Just being smart and having all this knowledge is meaningless if you don't use it. I just heard a saying that somebody said a vaccine is useless until it becomes a vaccination. Until it goes into an arm, until you put it into practice. Same thing here. So now is the time to take advantage. Look at things like Roth IRAs. I've always been a Roth IRA fan, but it's not for everyone. That's why they need advisors to give them the benefits and the drawbacks, what's best for the client's own facts and circumstances. See, the more customized your advice, the higher value it is. That's why when people tell me, oh, I went on a Roth conversion calculator online, it says I should convert or I shouldn't convert. It's meaningless because the variables, you put in the variables. So I find that people that don't want to spend the money to convert, put in that their tax bracket in retirement will be zero. So there it is. I got my answer. You know, this is why you need an advisor to look at what you have at the end, the big picture. The big picture with retirement and estate planning is how much is left do you win at the end of the game, not how much you pay now. In essence, I'm saying it pays to pay some tax now at low rock bottom rates to free up that money. Remember, the IRA, like you just mentioned in those calculations you did, those illustrations. So the person's up to 700,000. So maybe it went up 100,000 or whatever the number was. So the way I look at it, oh, Uncle Sam's share went up 40, 50,000. You're not going to keep that money. I tell that to clients all the time. They would come in and show me their statements. Oh, look, I have $1 million in my IRA. I would say, that's not your money. That's just temporarily on your letterhead. You're not keeping any of that. Well, what do you mean I'm not? Well, it depends on future tax rates. And if you look at the history of tax rates, you will see that over time, it's been up to 70, 80, 90%. I don't know if we'd ever go back there, but maybe 40, 50%. Remember, if somebody ends up in a 50% tax bracket in retirement, then they only have half the money they thought they had. I think that would make a big dent in retirement income planning. That's why this is tied into the retirement income planning program as well. See, it all comes together for a complete picture for the client. So you really need all the angles here, because your job is to preserve and protect this money from the high taxes that are coming at some point.
Well, I'm thinking of great quotes since you've already had some. One that I heard recently, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but it said, you can't read the label on the jar if you're still inside the jar. So let's get outside of the jar. Everybody's talking about the stretch IRA and how can I get around it? And of course, you can't get around it. But
there's a few ways. If you're a good planner, and I do programs on this all the time. Matter of fact, I'm looking at some of the comments. Somebody said, Ed, is this going to be the same as the program you did yesterday? Everyone's different, just like every client is unique. So you gotta get those pearls from each one. I think what Congress did was what they usually did. They're always playing catch up. They shot themselves in the foot. Yes, they think they're going to get this acceleration of income, but you know what they did? They incentivized all of us, the planners on this program, to do the better planning we should have been doing all along, to leverage that IRA. For years, people said, oh, IRAs, you never touch that. It's sacred. So what do? Just let it keep building for the government and give away half of it? There are things that can be done now to bring down this growing, building unpaid debt in the IRA. That's what the taxes are. That's why I named my new book. Oh, you might have noticed. I don't know if you noticed, I have a new book out. Did you notice that? Subliminal advertising. But that's why I call my new book The Retirement Savings Time Bomb. It's right. That ticking tax time bomb that advisors have to get into and learn how to disarm it. And there are ways to do it. We've covered every which way in this American College program. It's fantastic what we created, all on the on-demand trading. But that's where advisors have to dig in and create high value and get rid of that debt. That debt, that taxes, that ticking tax time bomb growing in everyone's IRA and 401k. Every day that goes by, even if you make money, like in your illustration, Steve, it's not all yours. It could be more of it going to the government. So you're building that debt. Meanwhile, taking it down, sort of like paying off a mortgage, that's the way to start building it up in tax-free vehicles to remove or eliminate the uncertainty of what future higher taxes can do to your client's standard of living in retirement. I do lots of consumer programs. Well, haven't in a year. Actually, we've been doing a lot of virtual, but even in live programs, the number one fear, running out of money in retirement. And the quickest way to run out of money is to fork over hundreds of thousands to taxes that could have been avoided with good planning.
Well, and that's where I was going with saying, let's get outside the jar, because there's been this buzz about life insurance as the new stretch IRA alternative. And I think it's interesting, Professor Fau at the American College published some interesting research on how life insurance can enhance living retirement benefits because it locks in the legacy benefit for the heirs. I mean, if you got the legacy benefit locked in, the retirees know the kids are going to get a tax-free legacy, so the retirees don't have to hold back on enjoying their own retirement capital. But now that the stretch IRA isn't as available, do you see life insurance in a new light in retirement and legacy planning, Ed?
Absolutely. I devoted a whole chapter in my book to it. I call it the power of life insurance. But again, it's not for everyone. This is where they need a talented, educated, informed advisor. Now, I'm a CPA, just for the people out there who don't know. I do not sell life insurance. I don't sell stocks, bonds, funds, insurance, annuities. So I don't have a horse in this race. I don't have a bias. My only bias is about helping keep people avoid unnecessary and excessive taxes. So obviously, Congress downgraded IRAs. That's what they intended to do. They felt that IRAs and other retirement accounts were for retirement, not as a wealth transfer or estate planning vehicle. So they cut the benefit. So they downgraded IRAs, but then they upgraded things like Roth IRAs and especially cash value life insurance for the right client. For example, for that client that has a large IRA that is named a trust as a beneficiary, guess what? That trust, even though it was good when they did it before 2020, maybe it was a conduit trust, those trusts won't work anymore. So now you have a client sitting there thinking he took care of all of this when it just won't work. And the taxes will explode within the 10 years, maybe at trust tax rates and depending on the type of trust. So the lion's share of it could be lost, exactly what the client wanted to avoid. So you may have to change the vehicle. This is where life insurance is a much better and more flexible asset to leave to a trust. Think about it. If you leave the life insurance to the trust, you don't have any RMDs. You don't have any complex tax rules. You don't have to worry about beneficiaries or the trust failing the complicated IRA trust tax rules. And guess what? You don't even have to worry about the tax because when it comes in, the life insurance is tax-free. So you have the better, more customized plan. So what I'm saying is you have to look, like you said, Steve, outside the jar. That IRA jar, it was a good vehicle while it lasted, but it's not sacred. When clients come in for years and they had large IRAs, they always said they wanted three things: larger inheritances, more control, and less tax. And the reason they wanted more control, they had a large IRA, maybe $1 million or more. Not everybody does, but these are the ones, every advisor on here has some client in that situation, has named a trust because they wanted post-death control. They built up 1, 2, 3 million in an IRA. They want their kids and grandkids to get it, but they don't want them blowing it. They don't want them squandering it. They're worried about the behavior. Maybe they're young. They don't know how to handle money. They have divorce, bankruptcy, lawsuit, any number of problems. This is what clients worry about. So they named a trust. But now this trust probably won't work, even if the funds are retained in the trust. At some point, at 10 years, they have to get taxed. If they are retained in the trust to protect it, then you have the high trust tax rate. So just to protect that the kids won't blow it, you give it to Uncle Sam. That situation won't work. Life insurance is a much better asset to leave to a trust. So what I'm saying is the IRA, the vehicle that got them there, you know that series of books, I forget who wrote it, Steve, but you know, what got you here won't get you there, or you know those books. What got you here, the IRA, think of it as a vehicle. The client is not married to the vehicle. They're married to the results. That's what you got to get through your head. They're married to the results. The IRA is the vehicle that got them there, helped them accumulate. But now it's an old jalopy. Congress made it so. Now it's pooped out. Get out of that vehicle. So switch from here on in, get rid of the old jalopy, move to a limo, a life insurance limo, a luxury life insurance limo for the rest of the ride. Larger inheritances through the leverage, more control if you need a trust, and less tax. Plus, there are lifetime benefits. So, you know, I see it as one of the better options, probably moves, in my opinion, to the top of the list for the right client with the large IRA, or for a client that has a good share of their net worth invested in their IRA or 401k. So that's one solution where the clients can actually end up better. They could simulate the stretch if they want or not, have their own trust provisions, invasion provisions, payout provisions. They can get the customized plan they always wanted. The IRA trust plan, even before the Secure Act, was clunky, was filled with obstacles. It was like going through a tax obstacle course, and most of those trusts failed. Everybody knocked down a cone somewhere. So a lot of them failed. And now it's actually a lot easier, but it takes doing proactive planning, maybe paying some tax now up front. That's the secret to all good tax planning. I talked about always paying taxes at the lowest rates, but paying them now. The way to keep more of your hard-earned money protected from taxes is to buy the taxes now while the value's low. That's the secret. I'll give you another, and I shouldn't have even shared because we have too many people sharing the secret, but I gave it away. That's the secret to the whole program. Another Ben Franklin quote. He said, 3 people can share a secret if 2 of them are dead.
Yeah. So you just gave away the secret.
I'm happy to do it, but now you have to dig in. I want advisors on this program to see the opportunity to create massive amounts of wealth, larger inheritances and tax-free inheritances, and use during lifetime without worrying about future higher taxes cutting into their standard of living. All of this can be accomplished. I've been saying this for years, but now the Secure Act, I think, pushed it over the edge. And that's your talking point when you get in front of clients, even clients that you set up what you thought was a perfect plan in 2019 even. It's not good anymore. At a minimum, it has to be reviewed, probably revised, or maybe scrapped altogether.
Yeah, and on the insurance idea of what we say in the Midwest is pay tax on the seed, not on the harvest. That's kind
right.
of doing. The one thing I would also add is I mentioned this in the last webinar, but now we have a little more. It appears the insurance industry is very aware of that, and with the year-end thing that was buried in the tax law for 7702 of the code, they have a little more flexibility in how they're going to price the products. So what's exciting is they are changing how they're underwriting these products, and they're changing how they're pricing it. The one thing I'd say to advisors to keep in mind, however, is because of COVID and mortality at older ages, there aren't as many options as there used to be as people get particularly old. So if you're going to use that kind of a strategy, you want to get to the client when they're in the 50s and 60s, if you can, versus the 70s and 80s.
Well, you know what? You're right about all of that. You're in the insurance world more so than me. Again, I don't do the insurance, but what I'm hearing from estate planning attorneys that we train all over the country, their business is booming. So what does that tell you? And when I ask them why, it's pretty obvious. They say, look around. You mentioned it at the top. How can you have 500,000 people dying and not have a ripple effect? So that's what they're seeing. People are sick, worried about getting sick, dying, worried about dying, and want to update their plans. So if people are rushing to attorneys, obviously they're thinking about things. Now their mind is open to a lot of these options where they may not have been before. So if you're an advisor, so I've been talking about that to that client for years. Now's the time to revisit that conversation. I've been talking with this prospect, hasn't done anything for years. Maybe now he will. It's about getting out there and readdressing this because everything has changed. People are more, look what we're doing. I was going to say people are more open to new solutions. Did you think we'd be doing virtual programs last year? No, people didn't even, I mean, they existed, but no, everybody wanted everything live. Now I'm hearing from the same estate planning attorneys, they're doing even will meetings via Zoom. I'm hearing from financial advisors, especially a lot of the ones we train, they're bringing in more business than ever without even seeing the client. Plus, they're getting bigger audiences, seeing them in person. They're seeing them through Zoom and things. And they're getting bigger audiences because they're able to really, it used to be that you would go to your own neighborhood. Now the neighborhood is the United States of America. That's the neighborhood. I just heard from one of our advisors. When I say our advisors, the advisors that train with us in our elite program, a guy in, I think either Detroit or Minnesota just picked up a giant, I got an email today, a giant account from somebody who found him online in San Diego. That would never happen before. But look at the opportunity. Why? They were reaching out for somebody they had heard had knowledge on updating the plan. And the clients are reaching out. What does that tell you? They're reaching out to estate attorneys. They're reaching out to advisors. It tells you that not enough advisors are going and reaching out to the clients that want the help right now. They're open to it.
Yeah, and by the way, let me remind everybody once again that if you have a question, put it in the Q&A box. The
Oh,
team
they're hitting it good, boy. I'm watching over here. I'm looking on the side here.
good activity. So thanks.
Oh, Sarah, Andy, and Ian are killing it. I'm watching it. Bang, bang, bang. Matter of fact, I just saw this good question here. Now I lost it. They're coming in so fast, I can't even find them anymore. Oh, it was from, I can't even find her anymore. I wanted to remember the name. It's so, I looked away for a minute and I can't even find it. It's about like 20, I can't even find, anyway.
Well, while you're looking, I'll ask you another question that's a kind of a shift of lanes here. But in our RICP courses, we've added a lot of training that deals with phased retirement. In other words, come on, the day of getting the gold watch at 65 and going to the rocking chair, that just doesn't seem to be the way it is, especially with COVID. We have early.
Wait a minute, what age did you say?
Well, yeah, I know. 60.
I'm over that age. I'm not ready for a rocking chair.
Yeah, well, I'm older than that. So, but what I was going to ask you is, as you think about the work you do with advisors on IRA drawdown strategies, how does the phased-in retirement subject fit into modern-day retirement planning? Because they're not just suddenly falling off the end of the earth at age 65. How do they deal with it?
Oh, again, more people that look. I just saw a study. There's people that retire for all kinds of reasons, but mostly the ones who retire. One of the reasons were because they had enough assets. But then what do you do? They're going to get into something else, and they'll always need help. Other than for health reasons, most people will be active forever unless they choose not to be.
Yeah, I think so. Well, let me, you probably won't remember this, Ed, but I believe it was the first time I spoke to $1 Million Roundtable was around 2006. And it had these big breakout rooms, and you were before me. And I went in there, and it was a 2,000 seat hall where you were speaking, and it was completely full, and there were people in standing room only type of thing. And I remember thinking, wow, there's going to be over 2,000 people listening to my message. Well, after you were done and I began, I looked around, and the audience was a little over 600. Now, it's not that funding buy-sell agreements wasn't extremely important. It's just that what you were talking about was maybe more important. So seriously, you have a following, and I'm just curious, what is it you think that you and your team bring to the game? What's the message? What's the process that's so compelling as we think about this?
Well, we're giving them, you just used the magic word, a process to do a better job for your clients, or helping them protect what they've worked their whole life for. We're talking a different language. When we train our advisors, and our advisors start picking up new business, and they start picking up $1 million, multi-million-dollar IRAs, they always say the same thing. If they're listening to, I'm starting to talk a different language. My confidence changes, my demeanor changes. They know I know my stuff, and all of a sudden, I'm attracting money like I never did before. From where? Knowledge. Knowledge brings empowerment. Empowerment brings confidence, and people can smell confidence on you. Look, you go into any place you buy something, can't you tell in 15 seconds if the guy knows what he's doing or not? Really? Yeah, people exude that, have this knowledge, exude the confidence, and that attracts big money.
Well, and so I think this might be a good opportunity to tell the audience what we're doing with the American College, so they kind of have a feel how this can all work.
Yeah, this is the IRA Success Program, on-demand training. This is the program that many of advisors had seen me and my team do for years and years, over 20 years. And we did it with the best partner around when you combine the RICP program and all the other resources, the incredible educational. I've been hitting education on this program. It's saying the power of education, invest in your knowledge. Well, what better place to go and partner with than an educational institution like the American College? And that's exactly what we did to provide you this IRA Success Program. You see, powered, I love that word, powered by the American College of Financial Service. And it gives you power, it gives you education. You can do it You can't sleep at 3 in the morning. Stop the video games. Get on one of these modules.
Well, how could you not fall asleep after that? Is that what you're saying?
No. We have 12 rock solid courses, and it weaves in with the Retirement Income Certified Professional Program, the RICP. I'm excited being a part of the team with you, Steve, as a professor of practice at the American College, to sort of combine the best parts of both of our institutions to provide incredible value, game changing. I said it on one of the videos we did for the program that this is a game changer. There is nothing like it in the whole industry. This powerful partnership, all with one purpose: to educate advisors to do a better job for their client, to increase their business, to increase their income by doing a great job for the client. Look, when the client is happy and they see the value and they're keeping more of their money, they're going to tell everybody about it. And that's when money moves. That's what I was talking about before, when it changes pockets. People are always on the lookout, and I'm seeing more of that than ever before. Even clients that were with their current advisor for 30 years, they use phrases like, well, now I have to move to the next level. Now I want to protect what I have. I need a specialist, somebody with specialized skills. That's exactly what we put together in the IRA Success program, powered by us as America's IRA experts and the American College of Financial Services.
Yep. So, and I see in the Q&A, someone, we've reposted that URL down at the bottom. You see where it says the americancollege.edu/IRA success. So if that's something specifically you're interested in, catch that. And we also have put it up in the chat function here. And even better is that Ed has agreed to join us as one of the subject matter experts for future revisions of our RICP curriculum. So, the RICP designation court has been a great way of getting people to laser focus on retirement planning. And so I just wanted to let you know he'll be one of our subject matter experts as we go forward. So I very much appreciate Ed and the team as we go along. And let me mention one other thing as we look at these questions in our box here. But for the people listening, also put in your calendars, as you see, April 12th at 3 o'clock. We're going to have a nice follow-up. Our guests are going to be Sri Reddy. He's an executive with Principal Financial Group, and Dana Emsbach, who you may have heard. She is a financial planner and author. And the topic will be a great follow-up to what we're talking about today, because it's called Retirement Income Concepts in a Changed Consumer Environment. So we're going to go ahead and move over to look at some of the questions.
I see a great one, Steve, from Susan here.
Great.
I just scrolling through them. I happen to land on this one, but this is a great question. She says there are so many scary commercials on email and Facebook. First of all, that's not where I would go for tax planning, but all right. Email and Facebook about high taxes in retirement and IRAs. You don't have to go to Facebook for that. I've been saying that for 20 years. So her question is, what's the reality? How bad can it get? We don't know how bad it's going to get, but it's highly unlikely taxes will go down. So here's the thing that I tell people, because I'll give you an example. I had an advisor write in a piece on one of these programs we were doing, these virtual programs. And he calls in and he says, Ed, I was at your 2-day program 10 years ago in Las Vegas, and you said the same thing, that taxes would go up. Well, it turns out they didn't. In fact, they went down. So you were wrong about that. When you said for everybody to convert to a Roth IRA. What do you have to say for yourself? So I told him, well, had you listened to me and had those funds in a Roth IRA, I don't know, where was the market 10 or 11 years ago? You would have probably had double the amount, and it would all be tax-free instead of building that debt for the government. But even if I'm wrong about everything, say, for example, on the life insurance or the Roth IRA, moving to tax-free vehicles, here's what I love about this kind of financial decision. Whenever I'm talking to a client, and every advisor should do the same thing, always go, when it involves a financial decision, always go to the worst case scenario. If I'm wrong about everything, what's the worst case scenario? Let's say somebody converted to a Roth and taxes didn't go up. Well, what's the worst case scenario? They've locked in a 0% tax rate for the rest of their lives. That's not a bad consolation prize. You can't beat a 0% rate. Plus, certain clients like to be able to sleep at night, and this helps them, knowing they never have to worry about what future tax rates can do to their spending ability or standard of living in retirement. So that's what you have to do. Not, I don't know how high it's going to go, but you can control your own tax rate. I tell that to consumers all the time. You can make it 0 right now if you wanted to and stop all the worrying. So that was a great question from Susan. You see anything else there? I'm looking through now.
Well, and I want to mention as we talk about taxes, because somebody asked, should we worry about 72T? And obviously that's a yes. One of the things that's important about education is it's not just a matter of tax rates anyway. So when the administration says it's going to be, they're not going to tax anybody making less than $400,000. Well, they're talking about tax rates. That doesn't necessarily tell you what the premiums are going to be for Medicare.
Right.
With all
There's
these
always ways to get at your money, but you don't have to wait for it to happen to you. You know, when I do consumer programs, I always say, you want your plan, not the government plan. And sometimes they ask me, Ed, what do you mean by the government plan? That means doing absolutely nothing and letting it happen to you. So if you just sit there, obviously at age 72, you're going to be forced to take out money at whatever the prevailing rates are. That's probably not a good plan. But sometimes the advisors have to give people a push, nudge them a little into proactive planning for to see what's going to be, to protect against these problems that could come later, to be like a shock absorber.
And it's related to that, and this is kind of just one specific question, but do you see qualified charitable distributions as being something we're going to be able to do in the future?
Oh, I hope so. I think it's one of the best provisions in the tax code. See, there's absolute value to share with a client. The only thing negative about QCDs is, in my opinion, it doesn't apply to enough people. It only applies to IRA owners and beneficiaries who are 70 and a half years old or older. Now watch that. I saw a question on that. The RMD age went to 72, but for some reason, Congress left the QCD age at 70 and a half. So you have a gap where some people are not taking advantage that could, just because they haven't started RMDs. Remember what I told you, the foundational principle of tax planning. Anytime you can get money out of your IRA at low taxes, that's the time to do it. With QCDs, you get it out of the IRA at 0 taxes. Now, of course, the money goes to charity, but I'm talking about people that were giving to charity anyway. Why not get a tax benefit they're no longer getting? More than 90% of the people are not getting tax benefits for their charitable contributions because they almost all use the standard deduction. So if you qualify by being an IRA owner, advisors should speak to their clients and charities. We've done programs where we showed advisors how to go out to charities and bring in new money. Now everybody wins. The charity wins, the client wins, the advisor looks like a hero to set up everybody on auto pay for making their donations right from their IRA. So there's lots of value there.
And I want to remind the people that are listening, because charitable giving is a good example. There are a lot of different things that you might do. In fact, there's the talk about using charities as a suddenly lost CRTs as a way of kind of a way to avoid the problem with the stretch IRA. Charitable remainder trust. I mean,
yeah. But again, there's a little deeper on that, which I don't know if we have time for, but I wouldn't do those as a general comment unless, one, the client is truly charitably inclined, and two, it's backed up with life insurance in case the beneficiary dies early and all the funds go to the charity. I know we have to close up soon, but you opened the discussion on charity. Somebody just sent me this email, just happened to be on charity, based on what he heard from his pastor this past Sunday. And the pastor said this: let us give generously and also in accordance to what we report on our income tax forms. Imagine if people gave to charity what they said they did. Holy moly.
Wow, that's exciting. Well, I want to, first of all, Ed, I want to thank you so much. And I want to welcome you. And it's great that you had the team willing to help us out because you guys were busy. I can see that just,
Oh yeah, I told you they would kill it, and such great answers. You
yeah,
know why they can do so many? Because number one, they know their stuff, so they've seen it all before. They don't have to research every question 3 weeks and then give people the wrong answer anyway. These are the people, myself and our three experts, that are doing our IRA Success program. That's who will be teaching it, the best in the business. And this is the place to get those skills for sure.
yeah. So very much appreciate it. Thank you much. And welcome to the American College.
Well,
And
I'm thrilled to be here. But the big message here, I'll leave you with this. The key to success forever, EVR is an acronym. Get educated, get visible, and get remembered. That's the key to success pretty much in anything.
with that, any other, I mean, I think you had a brilliant last thought, but any other thoughts before we hit the top of
I
the,
cannot stress enough, get the knowledge and you'll see, you'll see your income. I mean, that's the way to build a business. Like I said at the opening, invest in your own education and everything else will fall in place. There's no question about it. And people need this. That's the thing. The demand is out there and it's growing. Look what's gone on in the market, these rising values. People are looking at their statement saying, what am I going to do to protect this? Who do I call? Not my regular advisor. I need somebody who really knows their stuff, that has specialized knowledge in this kind of planning. The market is, I'm telling you, the pockets are going to change and you want to be there to fill yours, but doing it the right way to help your clients keep more of their hard-earned money so they can have more, keep more, and make it last. That's what every client wants. You help them do that. And the tax planning is the way to do it. You can make a client a fortune with good tax planning.
well, Ed and team, thank you very much. This has really been a gratifying hour. We appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody attending. And we are at the top of the hour. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Great program. Thank you.